It's getting hot in here!
Hey guys, what's up? We are going to be beginning our second card review for the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. At this point we have 69 of the 132 cards reveal. We will be starting off on November 8th, where we left off on the first Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, and we'll go through them all the way up to the most recent cards, where we'll end the second review video. So there's a lot to think about with these cards. I think that at the end, on the last review, I would love to go back and look at some of the key ones, because there's synergy and things in play that we're not quite sure how it's going to shape up yet. But I'll try to give you some good ratings and just thoughts on what we see here. Okay, let's begin. First up, Grime Street Pawnbroker. 3 mana, 3/3, Battlecry, give a random weapon in your hand, +1/+1. This card is very good. This card is extraordinarily good. A warrior will almost always have a weapon equipped, or a weapon in their hand, sorry. Actually, the fact that it's not a weapon equipped makes it slightly less good for an aggressive deck, because the aggressive decks do run low on cards in hand, but very good for a control deck. Still, I think you could play it in an aggressive deck. We've seen specifically weapons that came out that synergize really well with this type of mechanic, such as the Thorium Knuckles, and even using this on a War Axe, or especially it's the Pirate 1 mana 1/1 that gives you a 1 damage weapon. This type of effect would be really good for that, and if you had the coin, you could play the Pirate on the first turn, coin this guy out. You have a great lead up there. I think this is an awesome card. It's like a no-brainer card to play. 3/3 stats is a little low. If you were giving this to a different class, we would probably have seen 3/4 stats, but Warrior's in a strong place, so I don't think that's a big sacrifice to make it all for weapon value. Shaky Zip Gunner. 3 mana, 3/3. Death Rattle, give a random minion in your hand, +2/+2. So this works really nicely with some of the hunter cards we've seen, such as the Rat Pack, but I don't think this is good enough. This is the type of card where hunters already have so many powerful 3-drops. I mean, Rat Pack itself is a 3-drop. Rat Pack is way above the power level for this. But this type of card is going to be the one that's really strong. These kind of like power 3 moves where we're just getting a combative 3-drop. In comparison, this is like an investment turn 3, and even without Rat Pack being there and being this godlike card, hunters already have great 3-drops. They have the Eaglehorn Bow, they have the Cloaked Huntress, which gives you free traps. It's a 3/4. You have the Animal Companion, which has just been a staple of Hunter forever. I don't think this card will really see play. It's also random, like you don't get to select it. It's not a beast. Seems poor overall. Hired Gun. 3 mana, 4/3 with Taunt. It's like an arena card. This isn't a very good card. It's not bad. Stats are fine, but Taunt is better on high health creatures with lower attack. And even just 4/3 for 3 mana is not good in general. You really want that 4 health on your 3-drop. Otherwise, you might as well play a 3/3. There's very little difference that having the attack makes. And there's already a 3/3 Taunt for 3 mana. It's complete garbage, which is the Iron for Grizzly. And yeah, it's complete garbage. Nobody plays that. Nobody will play this either in Constructed. Could use it in Arena easily, though. Just a filler 3-drop, and the Taunt's kind of situationally nice. Worgen Greaser. Another neutral card, 4 mana, 6/3. This is just kind of like stat diversity for the 4 mana cards. Absolutely no tribe synergy. I think this card is awful. This card is beyond awful. There's no chance you would ever play this card. It has 0 value to you, and it has the stats of a 3-drop or even a 2-drop, where you've just given it high attack, but it'll die to everything. This is not what you want out of your 4 mana creatures. You could already play 2 and 3-drops that would have high attack and die to anything. Pretty terrible. Just another filler neutral card, really, to give 4-drops some diversity. Next up, Bluegill Sniper. 2 mana, 2/1, Battlecry, deal 1 damage. This is pretty bad. The only reason you play this is Murloc synergy. Without the Murloc synergy, it's really awful. I mean, essentially the Murlocs that are 2/1 and summon a 1/1, like Murloc Tidehunter, or the more recent version where they summon the 1/1 with Taunt, which is even a little power creep, are way better than this. Murlocs are best when you've established your own board. It's a weak body, so you're trying to get a lot of Murlocs down, and you should already have some Murlocs in play, so dealing damage isn't really that helpful to make them trade when you could have used things that actually buffed the creatures you already had on board. It's like counter to what I would expect from a normal Murloc strategy, so doubt that we'll see any play. Significantly worse than a Flame Juggler as well. Flame Juggler has 3 health. It's randomly dealing 1 damage, but that's way better stats on the body. Dirty Rat. Okay, this card is crazy. This card is absolutely going to see play. Let's just take a minute here and appreciate what this is. This is a 2 mana 2/6 with taunt. Okay, so that's just bonkers good on stats. It's about 3 health better than you would expect. And even for 2 mana, the neutral taunt option is a 2/2. There's not even a 2/3 with taunt. So its stats are amazing. It pulls a minion from their hand. This seems like a bad thing, but let's think about it in several situations it would be common. You're against an aggro deck. You play Dirty Rat. It was about as strong as 2 creatures. It pulls some low-cost guy out of their hand. It probably trades evenly with that. It also made it so they need to now draw more cards, which kind of slows down their overall plan. If you pulled out a Doomguard from their hand, sure, you're sad. That might have lost you the game. It's going to happen 1 in 15 times or something. If you're against a control deck and you play this card, it could summon a really big thing, but chances are against a control deck you have the time to wait to play this when you want to play it. You're not going to need to play it out on curve and take the risk. So you'll play it on turn 5 when you have a Shadow or Death available. Then you could kill their Ragnaros before it got a shot off. You can pull their Elise Starseeker or their Reno Jackson out of their hand without triggering the Battlecry. It almost looks more useful against a control deck, just completely ignoring the body in having a Deathlord type of mechanic where you're taking from your opponent, but even better than the Deathlord, it's taking a card out of their hand. You're actually not just winning on fatigue from that, you're reducing their options for their future turns. It's an amazing card. We'll definitely see play. It's even got special synergy with something like a Priest, and we've been seeing great Priest cards come out, so I think this is a no-brainer to be included in decks, and in a lot of fun, kind of creative, weird decks, which makes it a pretty exciting card for me. It's also directly anti-aggro. There's really no way an aggro deck could play that, because playing the Dirty Rat and pulling out any creature will be a tempo loss to you. Even though you got a 2/6 body, you can't deal with their creatures as well. So it's really a control-oriented card. Next up, Backroom Bouncer. Whenever a friendly minion dies, gain +1 attack. I mean, why would you play this, right? It's really bad. There's way better things you can do for a 4 mana 4/4. If this was a 5/5 and it had that effect, I'd say, okay, it's really good. But this is worse than a Yeti. I think this would be a lot more fair at a 3/5. Like, what you want from this is to have a high health creature on this type of effect. You really want like a 7, a 1/7, so that you play it and you sacrifice all these creatures, you get crazy value. In this case, even if you turn it into an 8/4, it still dies to a single removal. Just really no way you're going to play that in Constructed. That's the type of card that could have been a Murloc, right? That's the type of thing that could have been a Murloc and wouldn't really be that unbalanced. The body's a little weak, but the moment you give it Tribe Synergy, it looks really appealing. Dispatch Kodo. 4 mana, 2/4. Battlecry, deal damage equal to this minion's attack. Alright, right away, we want the things that buff things in our hand, right? If you play Dawn Handshow, which we'll see in a second, and hit Dispatch Kodo, that's awesome. That's so strong. It is a beast, so you get some synergy with that, but you're not really going to be playing this on curve and getting a big advantage. If you think of the way a hunter likes to operate right now, they drop their early creatures, something like a Kindly Grandmother. They try to establish a board that's difficult to remove so they can leverage it for some damage to face, which then they push on later in the game to win. The Dispatch Kodo is completely opposite strategy to that. We'd really have to see just a new type of hunter to be able to play this. This is like the buff to your hand and go for a value win, where you've buffed this a couple times, you could kill one of their creatures and get card value out of the fact that you played something and also killed something, like a Blackwing Corruptor or a Bookworm does. But it's really hard to use. Like, its base body sucks. I don't see that type of hunter being that popular. Would take something really creative to make me want to play that style. Next up, Smugglers Run. 1 mana, give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Now this card, this is the type of thing that would make Dispatch Kodo good. This is only for Paladin, and it's crazy strong for Paladin. So something to think about. If you're using this in a control deck, it looks pretty cool. If you had like 3 creatures, you got a 3/3 for 1 mana. It's tempo, that's good tempo. You'd be happy with 2/2 for 1 mana. And you could buff 7 creatures with this and get way more than that. So it's got situational use. But buffing a big creature with +1/+1 isn't that good. If you give a 5/5 and you turn it into a 6/6, it's okay. If you made Tyrion turn it into a 7/7, you really don't notice the difference. On the other hand, if you make early game creatures get 1/1, they are very strong and you can suddenly use the buff really quickly. So say we're turn 1, we have, I don't know, 3 1-drops and a Smugglers Run in our hand. We play Smugglers Run. Next turn, our Argent Squires are now shielded mini-bots, meaning that I could play 2 shielded mini-bots on turn 2, which is a 2/2 with Divine Shield. Essentially, the strongest 2-mana creature that was ever printed was shielded mini-bot. It's been rotated out with GVG. This type of card is allowing you to play them again in even more big value fashion. And we see this also included with the Paladin, I don't remember what it's called now. There's a Paladin 3-mana draw card where you draw 3 1-mana creatures. So you play that, you draw 3 1-mana creatures, hit them with the Smuggler's Run. Now you got some nice beefy dudes you can slam on the board for tempo. Very strong card. Be surprised if that didn't see play. Doppelganger, perfect combo to go with the to go with our friend Smugglers Run. Summon 2 copies of this minion. Yeah, it's this is good. Goes with the stat buffs, right? Its initial body is a 6/6, kind of. It's Force of Nature. This is actually Force of Nature, the Druid spell where you summon 3 2/2s for 5 mana, which is just considered kind of a low quality but balanced spell. It's not terrible. Yet this will scale up in crazy ways. The moment you give it +1/+1, you're getting significantly more stats. You've increased the stats by 50%. And if you turn them into 5/5s, suddenly they're getting resistant to all types of board clears. So if you can sit on this or give it some really big buffs, this one card could win you the whole game. And it's not even a punishment to play it unbuffed. I think this is an awesome card. It's a little slow, and the problem with it, I would say, is that the 5-mana slot is really crowded with good cards right now. If it was on the 4-mana slot, right, it would be way better. Because 4 mana, we're having trouble playing good cards. We have like Violet Teacher and stuff. We don't have a lot of good stuff for 4 mana. On 5 mana, though, we have all this dragon things. We have weapon removal. There's just inclusions there that are going to be tough to cut out of your deck for it. But it's so good, I imagine you'll play it anyways. Grime Street Protector. 7 mana, 6/6, taunt, Battlecry, give adjacent minions Divine Shield. Okay, let's consider the initial thing first as a 7 mana, 6/6 with taunt. It's a Bog Creeper with 2 less health. Bog Creeper is a 6/8 neutral 7 mana taunt, which is actually, not a bad card. Like, you don't play it in Constructed, really. There's the occasional deck that throws one in there. It's kind of a filler card. It didn't win you the game, but it was good for what it did. Grime Street Protector is losing 2 health, and in exchange you could apply Divine Shield to creatures on the board. I think this would be significantly better if it gave the creatures with Divine Shield taunt. And I honestly don't see this being played that much. Like, why would you play this over a Bog Creeper? You have to be guaranteed you had creatures on board already. And playing a Bog Creeper isn't winning you the game in the current meta, so let alone when we scale the power level up, it's going to be even worse. Yeah, this is a great arena card. You would love this. It lets you make a trade for free. But in Constructed, Divine Shield's really weak to certain mechanics that get played a lot, so I doubt that this will be so crazy good that we'd see it used. It's hard to say. If you put that in the current game, I think people would play it. But if you put it in, given all the cards we've seen so far, its power level is lower than what's been coming out. Grime Gadgeteer. 4 mana, 4/3. At the end of your turn, give a random in your hand +2/+2. Well, the stats on this are bad. Essentially, the stats make it add up with its effect to be slightly better than a Yeti. It does have repetitive value. Like, if you kept it alive, it would get really good value on the second turn, right? But it's low health. The problem with it is it has low health. The attack doesn't matter when you have an end of a turn effect. It's a priority kill from a warrior, though. I bet you could play this. It doesn't look that bad to me. And the problem is it's a random minion, but 2/2 is better than most of the other stat buffs we see. So, yeah, you could play this card. It's definitely a little above power curve. It's also common, which makes it fantastic for arena. Just like trades with something and helps your next play. You get a tiny amount of tempo from that, depending on the creature you hit as well, because it actually does have a slight stat buff over a Yeti. Brass Knuckles. This card is really bad on its own. If you take a 4 mana 2/3, After your hero attacks, give a random minion in your hand +1/+1. The random minion effect's okay. With 2 damage, you're only hitting face, though. Like, hitting a creature for 2 damage on turn 4 sucks. You're taking a lot back to your face for very little gain. But the moment you give this weapon +1/+1, it becomes fantastic. So with this card, the Grime Street Pawnbroker, easy synergy there. Easiest synergy. This is just good even if you didn't have the Knuckles already. But you can play this. It's the turn before Brass Knuckles, so you're automatically going to hit that card right on curve. And then this is an Assassin's Blade that is also buffing your minions. That's absolutely insane. I think that's an awesome combo. It pushes for a late game strategy, but it gives you 4 attacks for 3 damage before a Fool's Bane could even be played. Just a great setup for the future of the game. So I think that these two naturally combo well together. We're going to see those played in conjunction. I really doubt we'll see Brass Knuckles without some type of upgrade effect. Rat Pack, 3 mana, 2/2, Death Rattle, summon a number of 1/1 rats equal to minion attack. Like, this card is just, it's 10 out of 10 power level. Even if we didn't have an effect on it, it was just 3 mana, 2/2, Death Rattle, summon 2 1/1 rats. It's better than Infested Wolf, and Infested Wolf is a really good card. Infested Wolf, of course, is the Hunter, 4 mana, 3/3 with a Death Rattle, summon 2 1/1s. So for 1 less mana, we are only losing 1/1 stats on the first body. That's amazing. That's like an absolutely fantastic trade. And even if that wasn't good enough, if you ever buff this attack, it summons even more 1/1s. Like, what? Its initial stats are amazing. And it has this conditional, which is even more amazing. You could have made this a 1/1, and the conditional would still allow it to be played. The moment you give it an Abusive Sergeant, you're getting 4 rats. I think we could regularly see something like 6 rats come out if you just play your deck a little bit to that strength. And Hunters already have a good number of ways to flood the board, so you're really starting to punish extra the moment your opponent doesn't have one of those. I think this is just a gross card. I really hope that they nerf it or do something about it. Maybe Hunter is just going to be in such a poor place that having something so individually strong won't matter. But in terms of power level, it's so above the other cards at the moment. A little scared for that one. 5 mana, 3/7. After this attacks a minion, it also hits an enemy hero. Like, cool. Its stats are okay. It was Druid of the Claw. It traded 1 attack for 1 health. I think that's fine. 7 health for 5 mana is the highest health you could have. And it has this nice conditional where if it hits a minion, you're also hitting the hero. It's decent. I don't think it's strong enough to necessarily be played, but Hunters do have a big gap on 5 mana right now where they don't have great options. So it's a good filler card for that, where you just need a 5 mana play. It used to be Hunters would play Lothab in every deck, and honestly, they didn't even care about the spells all the time. It was occasionally for the spells, but mostly it was the turn 5, having something neutral that you wanted to play. Maybe he fits that spot. This is an average card, though. It's not as good as Rat Pack. For that reason, I'm not sure if it'll see play. Don Handshow. Alright, this guy is the 5/6 for 7 mana. Give a random minion in your hand +5/+5. So there was a lot of backlash when he was revealed. People thought he was so boring. Wow, this mechanic is terrible. This is actually an insanely good card. It is boring. You're doing something standard every time. You're doing pretty much the same thing. And that is something we've been missing right now. You know, so often we get to these late turns and we're like, well, what do I have? I have my big guy. He's Ragnaros. I hope he hits the right thing. This one, on the other hand, we're counting on it to always do a good thing for us. For 7 mana, the 5/6 is a little weak. You would technically want around a 6/8 for that much mana. It's a 5 mana body. So for 2 mana, you are getting +5/+5 to something in your hand. And the beauty of this is it's like a conditional, but the only condition is you have to have a creature in your hand. There's almost no chance that you play a match and you include 7 mana cards in your deck and you will always have creatures. There's no way you're going to have no cards. His initial body is also ideally statted. 5/6 is the best type of stats for that type of body. Let's say he was a 7/4, right? If he was a 7/4, he'd be so much worse. But a 5/6 is the best kind of stat line for a lower tiered body than the mana cost. I think he will be played in a lot of decks. Give him like a 9, maybe 8, 8.5 out of 10. Madame Goya, on the other hand, doesn't fare as well. It's Don Handshow, not the leader of any of the gangs, so I guess that's fair. 6 mana, 4/3, Battlecry. Choose a friendly minion, swap it with a minion in your deck. It is a random minion that it pulls from your deck, making this card really terrible. I don't know why you would ever play it. The stats are so bad. You could have made this a 6/6 card, and maybe it would have got played in a couple matches then. The main advantages I see to this is, okay, first, when you have the Golden Monkey, it could be really good. If you play the Golden Monkey and you get this, the cards in your deck are going to be all legendaries. Then it's really strong. And that's the only time you're probably going to see it actually played, is because you're never going to put it in your deck, but it'll come out of the Monkey, and that'll be its best situation. Any other case, the fact that it's getting you a random card is going to screw you over. Like, you can't even build a deck around that. You could have 2 creatures, and you do some meme thing where you go like play a Wisp, and then you Goya, and you have only Yasharj in your deck, and you like pull out Yasharj. I don't know. It just really doesn't seem like you could do much with it. There is that Wisp combo, which is the only way I think you could pull off like a decent setup with it. Really, it's just not going to happen. It's good to add a Golden Monkey, though. Grim Scale Chum. 1 mana, 2/1. Give a random Murloc in your hand +1/+1. Okay, this guy's good. This guy's definitely good. Paladins don't really use the aggressive Murlocs right now, but they're pushing Paladins to have more aggressive early game styles. The Murlocs fit well with that. They also go nicely with the types of Divine Shields and Blessings Paladins have. Its body is great for a 1 mana Murloc, and it's doing something for you. So it's just a power creep on what a normal 1 mana Murloc would be. I think this is easily playable in any type of Murloc aggressive Paladin, and that actually could be a very viable deck, given what we've seen from Paladin. Tanaris Hog Chopper. This is a neutral card, right? We have some neutrals now. I think they're all pretty terrible. 4 mana, 4/4. Battlecry, if your opponent's hand is empty, gain charge. Alright, this is just bad. Like, you don't know if your opponent's going to empty their hand. There's no way you could be clear of that when you're building your deck. I cannot see a reason why you would possibly include this. Technically, it's 1 mana better than a Druid of the Claw when it actually hits its conditional. So even then, it's not, like, so great. Pretty damn awful. Spiked Hog Rider. You get a bunch of these charge guys, and from my recollection, only one of them is good. And the reason for that is these guys, this guy and the previous one, the conditional to give them charge is a negative for you. The fact that your opponent had no cards means you're either already in an advantage or you're losing horribly on board. This one, 5 mana, 5/5. If your opponent has taunt, gain charge. Your opponent has to have something kind of good going on for it to actually be good. And then why would you want this card? You don't want to ever be losing in a match. You want to be winning. So having it only be good when you're losing seems like a bad option. It has no tribe synergy either. You can't really justify it. On the one side, the 5 mana 5/5 is not bad. It's better than the 4 mana 4/4 just for the straight body. But the last one, the Leatherclad Hog Leader, does not suffer from the same problem as the other two, and this makes it much better in terms of the neutral charge options. Is it playable? I don't know, but it'll at least have something that is more appreciable. The Leatherclad Hog Rider, Battlecry, if your opponent has 6 or more cards in hand, gain charge. So this conditional means your opponent kind of hasn't done much. You're facing an opponent that is playing a slower deck, and suddenly the fact that it has charge is really advantageous. If you're against an aggro deck, this is just 6 mana 6/6. Wasn't great, but you could play it. It's going to be a slow card no matter what if you're playing a 6 mana card against an aggro deck. But if you're playing this against a control deck, it's really valuable, because your opponent has to have saved up cards in their hand. They weren't doing things on the board. Also has the most health, and having 6 health means that 5 attack creatures won't kill it, so they could trade on really sizable common things such as Emperor Thorzan. This one's better than the other two. Don't think it's playable still. Volcanic Potion. They really seem to have gone with the class cards, are much above the neutral cards this expansion. Okay, I'm really happy Mage gets this. Volcanic Potion, Mage card, deal 2 damage to all minions. Yes! How long has Mage waited for 2 damage AoE? I'm a big Mage fan, and holy crap, you have never had 2 damage AoE. You had to wait until Blizzard, you had to combine things, you had to play Flamewaker missiles. It was just a pain. And now this scales with Spell Power too, so we can go 3 damage AoE, Spell Power with Volcanic Potion. It does hurt your own minions, so it has a downside. But just giving Mage 2 damage AoE is a huge improvement on their current toolkit, and the mana cost is really good. It's like a Demon Wrath for Mage, and that's precisely what they need. Really good card. Depends on the meta if it'll be played, but just the having that in the toolkit is nice. 4 mana, 3/3, add a random potion in your hand. So this is Cabal Chemist. It's Mage, Priest, Warlock. This is very strong. The potions we've seen right now are all really good. We've seen the Dragonfire potion from Priest. We just saw that one. 3 mana, deal 2 damage. This is getting you cards you might not have had for your class, and every single potion looks slightly more valuable than normal cards, or at least comparable. You're almost never getting a miss with this from what they've released. And also they've narrowed the card pool so it's only potions. It's not like add a random spell. You only are going to have maybe 5 or 10 options out of this, so you're going to get some pretty consistent results. The body's not bad either. It's a Gnomish Inventor that traded one of its health for attack. Yeah, easily playable. Abyssal Enforcer. Okay, I have mixed feelings about this one. In one way, it's Hellfire. Okay, it's deal 3 damage to all other characters. Its effect is Hellfire. Hellfire is great. 3 damage is also a really common breakpoint for AoE that you need on the board. The thing is, Hellfire is good because you can play it on turn 4, and it's really unlikely your opponent had higher health creatures at that point. This, on the other hand, at turn 7, they could have 8/8s out. It's way better than Hellfire if it actually clears. You get a 6 mana body creature for 3 mana, essentially, because the Hellfire costs 4, so you're overspending 3, and you get a 6/6. It's only good if Hellfire was good on that turn, though, and Hellfire is normally played on 4. Not sure. It's probably a Reno inclusion, but I doubt you'll make a deck around this specifically. It's more of just a card to give you a bit more AoE. Also, Warlock has such good AoE options. Don't know if they're really going to use any extra. Mage, 1 mana, 2/1. Okay, these are the type of cards that I'm really scared for, right? We've been seeing these neutral cards, and it's like, whatever, we got some Hog Riders. Nobody's really going to play this. This card, along with something like Rat Pack, just promotes strategies that have no counterplay. 1 mana, 2/1. The next secret you play this turn costs 0. Or right away, you can have a secret on the first turn. That's good. You do have to build your deck with secrets in it. That's kind of bad. You can now play Medivh's Valet on curve. Medivh's Valet is a 2 mana, 2/3 mage card. When you have a secret active, deal 3 damage. So it's like a 2 mana fire elemental. Crazy good card. The biggest problem with it right now, you can only play it after turn 3 because you had to have a secret in play. This card lets you to curve out in a way that I think could be unstoppable to certain decks, and I'm really nervous about that type of strategy. Definitely promote something that might have no counterplay. I would rather it just be bad, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for. But I think it's pretty good, and I think you could definitely make decks around that. The biggest thing to consider is the mage secrets aren't very good, but something like a counterspell is hard to miss value on. You're still getting a good amount out of it. Inkmaster Solia. In comparison, the Mage Legendary we've seen is really awful. I have mixed feelings about it. Like, some people will like it, that it's a Reno type of card. I kind of wished we just left that strategy behind. If your deck has no duplicates, the next spell you cast this turn costs 0. I really, as a deck builder, don't like being pigeonholed into having to have one of every card, because sometimes you just end up with like 5 cards you don't really want then, or your deck isn't consistent. Technically, it's probably not that bad. You can play a Flame Strike and a 5/5 on the same turn, gives you nice tempo. You could imagine against a Zoo Warlock, that would be really good. Normally you're Flame Strike on 7, but you have nothing on board, so they get to refill. But in a Reno deck, like, you're not going to be able to pull that off every time. I'm not a big fan of the Reno mechanic. I don't think the card's good. Maybe it's good. It's definitely for one type of deck only. 7 mana as well. The fact that you're not really benefiting too much because your best spells are 7 mana, so you're already waiting to that turn. If it was 6 mana, right, we could play it and then we could Flame Strike a turn early. That would be amazing. It'd be so much better. But at 7 mana, you're just like kind of getting a 5/5. It's probably good with Firelands Portal as well as Flame Strike. Potion of Polymorph. Another potion, and keep in mind we saw that potion drawing card. Secret. After your opponent plays a minion, transform it into a 1/1 sheep. I saw Maz point out, what happens when you play Jiraxxus into this? Do you turn your hero into a sheep? Because Jiraxxus, of course, is a minion for a brief second. He would get affected by the secret. This is a good card. It's definitely a good card. It's weak to certain strategies, obviously, but it also is just good off of random secrets. because it's leaving your opponent wondering more about your entities and kind of playing their creatures into it correctly. I think this causes an immense amount of chaos with the fact that Mage has so many random card draw that could get them a secret that you don't know what it is. I doubt it'll be played in constructed decks, but it's actually better than probably most of the Mage secrets right now on later turns, so very well could be. Sea Devil Stinger. These are the ones from today. I don't think I've seen these ones. Murloc for Warlock. Interesting. Sea Devil Stinger. Battlecry. The next Murloc you play this turn costs health instead of mana. 4 mana 4/2 is really bad. Like, wow, that's really bad. You're missing 3 health from a card that you still don't even want to play. I think this could just straight up be the next Murloc you play this turn costs hell, doesn't cost anything, costs 0. And it would just barely be good, right? It's so awful for its mana cost. Or if it was lower cost, right? There's still Murloc that costs so much mana that you needed to wait for this. Maybe it's good. You could put 2 of them in the deck. So you could go Sea Devil Stinger into Sea Devil Stinger into another thing and get like a nice board fill. But I don't know. I don't see that being strong. It's just way too understated for what it wants to do. Bomb Squad, the final card of the review. Nice artwork. 5 mana, 2/2. So I haven't seen this card. Battlecry, deal 5 damage to an enemy minion. Death Rattle, deal 5 damage to your hero. Wow, okay, so only hits minions, that's important. It can't go face. 5 damage to an enemy minion just basically kills everything. The current meta is Thing from Below, Fire Elemental, Emperor Thorzan. There's a lot of 5 health minions. Be really strong. You're definitely getting tempo out of it. 5 damage is just worth 5 mana already. Some classes don't even have access to anything like that. Paladin, for example, has no way to deal 5 damage. They would just play this because they don't even have a spell that does it. And you get a 2/2 body. It does have the disadvantage. The Death Rattle will hurt you. So you kind of want to be playing something that could heal. I don't think it's great for an aggressive deck. The body is too slow at 5 mana. Your aggressive strategies take effect before that. I don't know. It's probably playable. Definitely a good arena card because you don't care about your health total nearly as much in arena compared to the board presence that it would give you. You could theoretically also silence it to reduce 5 damage. And that concludes our second card review. We are now up to 69 of the 132 cards released. There'll probably be 2 more card reviews in total, and on the final card review, I'll try to give you some concluding thoughts, some brief, just what I feel so far. It does seem like what they've done with this expansion, they've pushed the class cards to a power creep, maybe 10% better than the current cards we're using. Some classes have benefited a lot more from this than others. They've especially targeted the weaker classes. I'm going to say Priest being the obvious example. They've gotten crazy good class cards. And the question is, after everybody gets some overpowered stuff, is it all going to be on the same level? It's going to be hard to tell right now. We'll wait and see, I guess. See you in the next one.